WWE kicked off 2020 in style with a tremendous Royal Rumble show. One of the major surprises from the event was the shocking return of Edge, the WWE Hall of Famer wrestling in a match for the first time since he was forced to retire due to serious neck and spinal injuries in 2011. Now medically cleared to compete, the rated R superstar is on a collision course with former partner and longtime rival Randy Orton, their issue undoubtedly the most heated leading into this year's WrestleMania. Though the Ultimate Opportunist has never had an outright bad match at the showcase of the Immortals, some are certainly better and more meaningful than others. Please feel free to use this video ranking Edge's WrestleMania matches from worst to best as a reference guide when planning your self-isolated pro wrestling viewing. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and this is every one of Edge's WrestleMania matches ranked from worst to best. Join us! Number 10 versus Booker T at WrestleMania 18. WrestleMania 18 was a homecoming for Edge, with the event taking place in the Toronto Skydome, the same place a teenage Adam Copeland had watched Hulk Hogan clash with the Ultimate Warrior some 12 years earlier. He was on a bit of a roll leading into this show, freshly emancipated from partner Christian and battling over the Intercontinental title. His trajectory was clearly marked up, and it was obvious to everyone that the company viewed him as a future star. He was tall, he was charismatic, and he had a great head of lovely blonde hair. Three things that go a long way in the weird and wonderful world of sports entertainment. That last trait is clearly the most important, since Edge was placed into a match that was being fought over a fictional Japanese shampoo commercial. Yes, this was WWE in 2002, before anyone tries to trick you into thinking the company was more creative back then. Edge also mocked Booker's perceived lack of intelligence following the former 5-time WCW champion's comical appearance on the game show The Weakest Link. The feud was farcical and the match reflected the build. Booker and Edge were placed firmly in the mid-card and given just 6 minutes to showcase what they could do in front of almost 70,000 fans. As a result, the match was forgettable, save maybe for the little scene Edge-a-Rudy. The hometown boy got the win, but the match itself was more like something you would see on Raw or SmackDown. Perfectly alright, but nothing memorable. Number 9 versus Alberto Del Rio at WrestleMania 27. Prior to his return at the 2020 Royal Rumble, many believed that Edge's last ever match would be his World Heavyweight title match with Alberto Del Rio at WrestleMania 27. The night after the show on Raw, Edge informed the world that he was to retire, effective immediately. Of course, everyone is thrilled that Edge gets to come back and finish his career on his own terms, but had this been his last match, then I can certainly think of worse ones to go out on. After all, not everyone gets to have their last match at the biggest show of the year as the reigning World Heavyweight Champion. The match itself was solid, if unspectacular. It looks better if you watch the whole show because WrestleMania 27 is not remembered well outside of the Triple H Undertaker match. One of the odd things about this match, certainly at the time, was that it opened the show. Now there's nothing necessarily wrong with kicking off your biggest show of the year with two talented performers in a match over a major championship, but Del Rio had won the Royal Rumble and this was the World Heavyweight title, not some secondary strap. Traditionally, that would mean that the two men would be main eventing, or at least closer to the top of the card than the bottom of it. Edge got the clean win with the spear, and then, bizarrely, he and Christian destroyed Del Rio's car with crowbars after the match. Everyone celebrates in different ways, I suppose. I remember when I finally won the pub quiz and, overcome with joy, went around town throwing bricks through people's windows. Number 8 versus Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 26. The trends of Royal Rumble winners choking in the eventual world title match at WrestleMania and Edge being a bit of a prick after the fact were on full display a year before the match with Del Rio when Edge clashed with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 26. A logical storyline saw Edge return at the Rumble after months on the sidelines recovering from an Achilles injury. Before the sabbatical, the rated R superstar was riding high as Le Tag Team Champion with Y2J. Once his partner went down with a case of foot hurt, Jericho distanced himself from Edge, bad-mouthing his former running buddy and replacing him with the Big Show, sowing the seeds for an eventual match following Edge's return. The two had a grand encounter full of inventive spots, counters, and psychology. After a lot of back and forth action with no man gaining a clear advantage, Jericho began to focus on the Achilles, targeting the injured body part in a vicious and calculated way. He needed a belt shot and a code breaker to get the job done, but the first ever undisputed champion eventually triumphed. The post-match saw Edge spear Jericho off the announce table and through the barricade, setting up future matches between the two further down the line. Not the classic these two are certainly capable of, but a damn fine wrestling match and a good way to spend 20 minutes. Number 7 versus John Cena versus Big Show at WrestleMania 25. Another year, another WWE title match with Edge in the mix. Who would have known that the moody trench coat wearing vampire boy from the late 90s would turn into arguably WWE's most dependable headliner of the 2000s? Edge was once again entering the match as champion, defending against John Cena and Big Show, coming off the back of a love triangle storyline. I must be clear now and say that the love triangle was not between Cena, Show and Edge. That would have been tremendously sexy, of course, but rather it was between Edge, Show and Vicky Guerrero. The love triangle storyline added a bit of intrigue to what could have been a rather ordinary match, which kept fans guessing as to which side general manager Vicky would take and if Cena could overcome the odds stacked against him. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could anyone overcome such incredible odds? How could anyone possibly thwart a multi-time world champion at the top of his game, the world's largest athlete, and the woman who controlled SmackDown? Well, I'm sorry, but if you didn't want to see the odds overcome, then you shouldn't have come to John Cena. Because Big Match John is a man that thrives on rising above hate and has made a career of triumphing where others would have failed. And so it came to be, as Cena won a very decent match that, unfortunately for those involved, had the misfortune of following Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker's instant classic. In an incredible moment, Cena held Show and Edge on his shoulders at the same time before dropping both men for the victory. Number 6, Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 23. And now we get to the multi-man gimmick matches in Edge's WrestleMania resume, of which there are several. To date, Edge has competed in 4 such matches involving ladders and other inanimate objects, and while still a breathtaking display of skill and courage, this Money in the Bank from Mania 23 is the weakest of the lot, especially in relation to Edge's involvement and the effect it had on his career. The Ontario native took a break from competing for a world title in order to compete for the opportunity to compete for the industry's richest prize, going up against Matt Hardy, Mr. Kennedy, King Booker, Randy Orton, CM Punk, Finlay, and Jeff Hardy, a stacked field full of believable wrestlers. Indeed, WWE did a great job of loading the match with former and future world champions and those who were in the middle of a big push in order to create the sense that anyone could win the match. One of the favorites, though, due to his past experience and position on the card, had to be our man Edge. It was not to be, however, as he and Jeff Hardy were both taken out of the match following the charismatic Enigma's death-defying leg drop from the top of a ladder inside the ring to the outside, through Edge and through a ladder. Holy potatoes. Before he was blasted and taken out on a stretcher, Edge got only a little time to shine, hitting pretty much everyone in the match with a spear in a fun moment. But he was not the focus here, and he was sharing the spotlight with 7 other men, including eventual winner Mr. Kennedy. Ironically, Kennedy would get injured IRL and lose the Money in the Bank briefcase a couple of months later to, that's right, Edge. Even when he doesn't win the match, he somehow finds a way. Number 5, the Triangle Ladder Match at WrestleMania 2000. 7 years ago, and before they were retired, working behind the scenes or otherwise broken, the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian were 6 young upstarts looking to make their name in the business. Seeking to steal the show at their first WrestleMania, all 3 teams put everything on the line in a hair-raising triangle ladder match, the very first of its kind. Watching it back, it's amazing that some of these men are still competing today, 2 full decades later. Again, Edge wasn't the primary focus here. He was working with his fellow professionals to get the match and everyone else over. For his part, he took some hellacious bumps and allowed himself to absorb punishment that makes sense of those future neck injuries. All 6 guys have been in other, even more extreme matches since, but time has not lessened the impact of this particular stunt show, a true highlight of a WrestleMania not exactly remembered for thrilling action. In the end, E&C emerged from the wreckage as champions, fulfilling a childhood dream of being tag team title holders at the granddaddy of them all. Number 4, Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 21. Edge missed both WrestleMania 19 and 20 in order to recover from major neck surgery. The injury happened at a bad time for Edge, not that there's ever a good time to break your neck of course, because he was really going places as a breakout star on SmackDown before he was struck down. When he returned not long after Mania 20, it took him a while to regain and build that momentum. Coming back as a rather bland babyface with the same tights, haircut and attitude, there was a sense of been there, done that about his act. It took him turning heel and stealing Matt Hardy's actual girlfriend to convince WWE higher-ups that he was in fact their man for the future. Because if there's one thing Vince McMahon respects, it's a person not afraid to roll the dice and take what they think is theirs, even if what they think is theirs is actually somebody else's significant other. The inaugural Money in the Bank ladder match, this is also one of the very best. Edge, along with Chris Jericho, Kane, Chris Benoit, Christian, and Shelton Benjamin, were really in uncharted territory, but the 6 men put on a great, logical match full of danger and excitement. Everyone looked good here, particularly Benjamin, admin who blew everyone away by running up a ladder bridge and clotheslining Jericho off the top of one. The ladder match was getting a bit played out at this point in time, but that spot, and many other inventive ones like it, made this match stand out and helped revive the stipulation. Along with the incredible action, the match also had the right winner. After blasting Benoit with a steel chair to his already injured arm, Edge climbed the ladder and retrieved the briefcase containing a guaranteed world title shot anytime within the next year. Edge would memorably go on to cash it in against John Cena at the 2006 New Year's Revolution pay-per-view. A great concept, a great match, and a great winner, WWE is still trying to replicate it a billion cash-ins later. I'm not sure anyone is going to touch the original. Number 3 versus Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22. By rights, Edge should have been headlining WrestleMania against perennial rival John Cena. The hottest heel in the business, the rated R superstar should have been on a collision course with the leader of the C Nation, but, as we're all too aware, logic and reason can't intervene when it comes to the plan, especially if that plan involves the boss's son-in-law and man who will inherit the company one day. As it was, Edge dropped the WWE title to Cena, who then began a feud with Triple H, centered around the fact that Cena supposedly couldn't wrestle and how the game was so much better at wrestling and cooler and had more hair and had badass entrance music and wore more expensive shoes and other such bollocks that nobody really cared about. Edge, meanwhile, transitioned into a feud with Mick Foley based on the hardcore legend's distinct lack of great WrestleMania matches or, for that matter, WrestleMania performances. Considering Foley had been retired for most of the prior 6 years with only a handful of matches in that time, there was no guarantee that this one would be anything to write home about either. Thankfully, the match was a thriller. Fought under hardcore rules, the two absolutely battered each other with plunder and incorporated the weapons in surprising and novel ways. Foley wrapped barbed wire around his stomach to counter a spear, and then later wrapped it around Mr. Socko to deliver a particularly nasty mandible claw on both Edge and Lita. And then came the thumbtacks and the fire. The two battle-scarred lunatics continued to up the ante right until the finish, a spear off the ring apron and through a flaming table. There was absolutely no margin for error on that stunt, and mercifully, neither man came out of it with more than singed eyebrows. It's not for everyone, but you simply have to appreciate the effort and the sacrifices that went into creating this bloodbath. Edge got another major win on his way to superstardom, and Mrs. Foley's baby boy got the WrestleMania moment he deserved. Number 2, TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7. WrestleMania X7 is regarded by many to be the best WrestleMania of all time. A big reason for that is because the show really did offer something for everyone, from an epic main event and sports entertainment drama to technical mastery and, nostalgia. The human car crash element of the show was provided, once again, by the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian, giving fans a sequel to the first TLC match from SummerSlam 2000. Yes, WWE did watch the incredibly dangerous triangle ladder match from Mania the year before and thought, you know what, these lads need more things to hurt themselves with. Another astonishing stunt show you merely have to marvel at the lengths these 6 went to in order to entertain. On this occasion, you also have to give a lot of credit to Rhino, Spike Dudley, and Lita, who all interfered on behalf of their teams and ended up either eating some steel or being put through a table. The absolute pinnacle was reached when Edge speared Jeff Hardy out of midair as the rainbow-haired Daredevil was holding onto the title belts and swinging around like a human piñata. Once again, Edge played his part and was rewarded with another victory and tag team title triumph. A match and moment that reeked of awesomeness, it's only bettered by Edge reaching the absolute summit of his career 7 years later. Number 1 versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 24. The dream of any WWE superstar is, or should be, to main event WrestleMania in a WWE title match. Only a small percentage of those who dream it will do it, of course, and an even smaller percentage will do it or have done it against one of the most iconic characters and respected men the business has ever seen. That's what Edge was faced with when he wrestled The Undertaker in the main event of WrestleMania 24. Taking place after Ric Flair's emotional retirement match with Shawn Michaels, as well as Floyd Money Mayweather's compelling special attraction match with The Big Show, the two men had tough acts to follow, but they had the tools and determination to deliver. As much as the match was about the World Heavyweight title, it was also about the streak. Taker going into the event on a 15-0 winning run. With a smartly worked match that played up Edge's ultimate opportunist moniker, the two were able to to convince fans that the outcome may not be a foregone conclusion. Edge seemingly had Taker scouted, and offered up a counter whenever needed. When he ran out of counters, he had his two edgeheads, Hawkins and Ryder, run interference for him. Those two jabronis obviously did little to help, but Edge continued to fight back and take it to the dead man as the near falls racked up and a sense that he might actually beat Taker grew. At no point was the feeling as strong as when Edge kicked out of a tombstone after Charles Robinson had sprinted about 300 feet down the ramp to make the count. It took an increasingly desperate and worn down Undertaker to apply a last-ditch Devil's Gate in order to win the match and the title and preserve his streak. A slow burner, Edge vs Undertaker becomes an engrossing contest as it wears on and was a more than worthy main event. It also definitively proved that Edge could hang with the best of them in a major setting and provided a launching pad for future success.